Hey, yo, church business is not my business, but they should really mind their business. What up, though? I know you heard by now that Pastor Jamal Bryant and his wife, Carrie Bryant, they're a little bit of talk. They've been everywhere in all the blogs, all the media circus, even on Tamara Hall show, right? Because they walked into what was called the Mayor's Mass Ball. It was a fundraiser gala. Sometimes I get them confused, to raise money for HBCUs. However, the talk of the town was not them showing up for the work. Talk of the town was Miss Carrie Bryant's dress. It looked to be revealing to a lot of folk, especially with her being the first lady to his church, because he is a quote unquote man of the cloth. There's been a lot of conversation and talk about it. People have really been upset, especially those of a certain church community or those who have perception of what a church community is supposed to be like. There was even a pastor or a bishop, Patrick Wooden, who said that there was nothing classy about that dress and said that Pastor Jamal Bryant presented his wife like a quote unquote $2 whore. Now, I'm the last person to really respond to anybody's church because I don't know the last time I've been to church, probably when I had a hairline, which is a very long time ago. However, I will say to this, you're going to have to call a friend for people to understand. This is why a lot of people like myself or others have issues with getting along with a certain church because they don't feel like they can present themselves as who they are because of the people that are present. I have this theory that you may feel like I'm a little crazy about, but I really do think that God left us alone years ago, ever since he sent his only begotten son to the store to get some cigarettes and they hung up Jesus up on the cross. I think a lot of this stuff that we have actually created has been of our own well-doing. I don't think it has anything to do with some book that has been written years and years ago. I think if you was to actually show up and tell God you've been going by a certain book, he'd be like, I didn't write that. That nigga Charles wrote that. And tell Luke stop lying. That's my theory. But you ain't got to believe what I got to believe. How about let's stick to the attitude that her dress is somehow some sort of cardinal sin and it was ultimately disrespectful because of who they are. Here's the thing. I'm not into the whole fashion thing, and I had to go get my information from a dear friend who is actually involved in the church community to understand why this was a big deal. And my friend, who happens to actually be into fashion, actually happened to be someone who is an actual minister, was actually able to break this down to me. Well, first of all, apparently the dress was not nude. It just has a presentation of what nude is supposed to be. Granted, I don't wear dresses, so I wouldn't know that type of information. But be that as it may, the argument that I kept seeing, that wearing a dress like that creates lust and it creates desire from other men, brings us back to this very it brings us back to this very archaic type of attitude that somehow when men are lustful and desirable towards women, that it is the woman's fault. Every time there is a Bible scripture that is quoted in front of me, there is always some sort of story of a man who lives righteous until he comes across some wicked woman who happened to whisk him away from all of his riches. And if that man would just have avoided that woman, that he would be okay. Now let's think about that for a second. You wearing a dress can create some sort of lust within myself that can make me be uncontrollable, even in a patriarchal society where I'm supposed to be this man who runs everything and I'm strong in all things, big and small, through God. However, if I just could not help myself when it comes to lusting after a woman, and Lord forbid I had any kind of relationship with her, then all of a sudden it becomes her fault because of what she's wearing the dress. There's so many layers of this, of why is it the issue and why I have an issue with this. I used to have a blog that was called Walks and Chew Bubblegum, where I believe that the coexistence of two things, meaning I don't believe that just because you and Popeye's chicken trying to get yourself a chicken sandwich, that means you need to have this amount of people out there voting. I don't think the two things are the same, and I think you can also enjoy one and also go vote later on. However, when it comes to the church, making this type of situation an issue, or people of the church community, making this such a huge thing, I'm trying to understand how is it that how a woman is dressed all of a sudden has something to do with her being responsible for another man's lust. You have countries out there where women are dressed, where you can only see their eyelids. It does not stop the amount of assault or rape cases that country or that city has. Men will move the goalposts for desire if they feel like going through with non-consent or just desiring in their minds anyway, even if it's on their own perverted sexual imagination. It doesn't matter. So the fact that you're trying to tell me that what a woman is dressing has her being at fault of that, that's something that I didn't think that we'll still be talking about in this new year of our God, of Black Jesus. But however, here we are right back at it. Now, I really do wish and desire that I had all the answers to why this should not be a thing, but it seems like it's going to continue to be a thing until a thing is not a thing anymore. us controlling and being judgmental of Black women's bodies and how they dress and how they operate is something that's been going on in the courts, and it's something that's been going on with legislation and laws. And however, we're here right back, even in a faith community, still trying to police a woman whose husband herself is on record saying that he bought the dress and he's fine with it. So as long as that man is okay with it, why are you embarrassed when he is not? I don't get it. I don't claim to know these people's background. I don't pay attention to this much kind of stuff in my life. But what I do pay attention to is the fact that we're constantly making excuses for the perceived actions of what men may or may not be dreaming, doing, or thinking, or acting upon, and somehow finding a way to kind of blame a woman for it. You know what? Is that type of mentality the reason why a lot of things that the church might preach might be considered a little bit outdated.